We begin tonight, though, with that looming postal strike. 55,000 Canada Post workers could go on strike Friday night. Now, if that sounds like déjà vu to you, it's because the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, they were on strike not too long ago. Last November, less than 6 months ago, the union went on strike for 32 days. Sticking points included worker pay, benefits, and pensions. That strike only ended after the federal government intervened. It was a costly strike for Canada Post, which says it's now lost $3 billion since 2018, mainly driven, of course, by a drop in letter mail delivery. And a new report commissioned by the government says Canada Post is facing an existential crisis. Jon Hamilton is a spokesperson for Canada Post and joins me now. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me on, Peter.
The collective agreement expires in, 2 days?
Yep.
Yet your company paused negotiations last week. We now have this strike looming. How do you square the pausing of negotiations with the claim that Canada Post is doing everything it can and has to do to try to advance these talks?
Yep. We had several rounds of discussions over the last couple of months. They had not resulted in meaningful changes, obviously. And two of those were during the Industrial Inquiry Commission,
right,
with Kaplan himself, trying to get deals over weekends and things like that. So we had negotiations and discussions going the last couple of weeks. Again, we weren't getting to a meaningful place. And the Industrial Inquiry Commission, which we both participated in, CUPW and Canada Post, that report came out on Friday. Yeah. So we thought it made sense to have some reflection on that, understand what's in that, and then be ready to prepare offers and present them to the union. So we're meeting with them tomorrow, and hopefully we can get negotiations going again.
In my normal job, I report on the economy. So I'm talking to small businesses, medium businesses that are very dependent on your services, lost all kinds of money the last time around. And in talking to them, they get the sense that it's not that we're no further along than we were 6 months ago. They fear we might be actually further back than we were. Where are we in terms of the progression here?
Well, and I think if anyone's read the Industrial Inquiry Commission report, it gets into the details. And a lot of those things have been hiding in plain sight and aren't a huge surprise for Canadians. The fact that mail has been declined for 20 years, that the parcel business was going pretty well for us, and then the pandemic, a whole bunch of new entrants, the business became more competitive and we started falling behind. So that's been, the crux behind our financial issues. But beyond that, it is ensuring that we have the flexibility in our collective agreement. So, and what I mean by that is not taking out our current situation on employees, it's updating and adding some flexibility to our delivery approach, adding in some more part-time, good jobs, part-time jobs on weekends to provide affordable delivery, looking at how we deliver so we're more flexible, because our delivery model is built for mail, so a steady stream of mail. And we've been able to deliver parcels through that, but parcels fluctuate. They go up and down, and we don't have any ability to adjust, so that's what we're looking for. But any offer we put forward is going to continue to preserve what's most important to our employees, their pension, their job security, their benefits, and all of those types of things. And also with wage increases, but there's only so far we can go. The report clearly says that we're in an existential crisis, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, although it does still, when you hear it, sound shocking.
It sounds shocking. $3 billion loss since whatever it was, 2018.
The last 5 years, and we'll be putting out our 2024 results soon, and they're even worse.
And I get the sense from both sides and from your customers that there's broad agreement on those broad things. We need to adjust, you need to sort of figure things out. And yet I find myself continually reading pieces about, shifting employee obligations, some part-time stuff you mentioned on the weekends. How do you get to the big stuff if you can't even really agree on shifting work on the weekends, for example?
Well, I think it's really about, do we continue to try and preserve the status quo? Or do we just say it's 2025, the delivery world has changed, we're part of the delivery world, so we need to change as well? And what the union has continued to come forward with, they would say they had a plan for weekend delivery, but it was with full-time employees. Many of our current full-time employees would move from Monday to Friday to the weekends. And also it's adding more full-time employees. And you also have to understand, when we add more full-time employees, and we have our delivery group, I think is 95% full-time right now as it is. So we are not balanced in terms of full-time, right, part-time. But we need to add that flexibility so we can fluctuate and have the weekend delivery. But Our full-time employees today, if you have somebody that's a full-time employee at Canada Post under the collective agreement, and this was all in the collective agreement for years, that job security is that after 5 years, they can never be laid off. If we have no work for you, we're going to pay you till you retire, and then you're going to go on your defined benefit pension plan. So it's a long-term commitment when we hire a new full-time employee. But I think also the report, and I'm glad it went broader because it meant the issues aren't just with our collective agreement. Our regulatory framework is so out of date, it makes our collective agreement look fresh and new. We've got a rural moratorium that was in place since 1994. 30% of the post offices that are protected under that are actually in urban centers now because they've all grown since 1994. Richmond Hill's on that list. It gets treated the same as Apple Hill, Ontario, in terms of post office preservation. So there's things like that where let's do the hard work and understand the challenges and figure out what we need to be doing and doing it in a proper and collaborative way rather than having moratoriums and having stringent collective agreements. The Postal Service is worth fixing. It's a great service. It's an economic engine like no other, and it's incredibly helpful to have something like that when we're fighting against Trump, but we need to make it stronger.
This has been a long, slow train running. I mean, Blockbuster Video shut down 20 years ago. And here we are still talking about a lot of the same things that were disrupted in the same ways. Who's getting it right? Is there a model that we can say, hey, let's do it like Belgium or somewhere else?
Canada Post is a little different because we have this small population relatively spread across this tremendously large piece of geography.
Right.
So the density gets thrown right out the window. So anyone that looks at European models, well,
it's smaller. I get that.
Yeah, so it's easy. So the density throws. So that also means there are parts of the country that are difficult to serve. So if you look at that, though, that is one of the beautiful parts about Canada, the far-reaching parts. You've got this postal system that's ready-built infrastructure to serve the entire country and to move things east, west, and north. And that's incredibly valuable. Step aside from everything else and the old-timey view of the post office. Having an organization that can move things that's Canadian-built, Canadian employees that can do that for the Canadian economy is incredibly valuable. We should be working together to fix that. We're just not there.
We hear about the existential threat. We hear about the $3 billion loss. The last strike was 32 days long and was only ended by a Labour Board ruling. Can Canada Post survive another?
It's difficult. The last one in our annual report will show the impact, but it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So, and that's just for that period of time. It's the longer term. We have had a sign in the window saying, take your parcels elsewhere because we can't provide the certainty. If you're a small business or a large business, if somebody said like, here, can you get this to my customer? And our answer is, hopefully, maybe, we lose that customer. So what we want to do is get an agreement, get that certainty so we can rebuild the business. We think Canadians want to shop Canadian, they want to ship Canadian too, and we can do that.
The hard part of any conflict, a schoolyard fight, a trade war, a dispute like this, is finding a path out where everybody can save face. You've got till Friday at 12:01. Yeah. Is there, really quick because we're almost out of time, but is there an obvious path to you to get there?
We believe so. We'll be putting forward offers that can get us there. It's going to require some tough discussions and a collective desire to move forward because that will benefit Canadians, employees, and everything, but we just haven't found that common ground yet.
Well, I hope you do. So thank you for coming in and speaking with us about it today.
Thanks, Peter.
For more on this, I'm joined by Jim Gallant, who's a negotiator with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
We've got this commission report that we just mentioned about looking at the things that need to get done to try to address these. So some of the things we're talking about, more part-time staff for the weekends. What do you think of the recommendations that were set out in the report and how that ties into where you think the actual solution to this may be?
The commission asked us to cost some of the things that we were saying, like the full-time versus part-time. The commission never asked Canada Post to cost anything. It's quite, I guess we should have commissioned
Commission your own report.
Commissioned our own report. We might have got the answer we wanted. But the answer that we gave them to show that it was cheaper to do it with full-timers than part-timers, it worked. And the commissioner said, thanks for doing that. and then disregarded it.
Right.
That's the hill we're up against when it comes to the weekends. Canada Post wants it a certain way. They want part-timers, only part-timers basically, and they want to deliver the mail that way. And if you're going to hire 2 part-timers that work 4 hours each, it's cheaper to do it with 1 full-timer at 8 hours.
So, I mean, we heard from Jon Hamilton. Canada Post has said that the union just wants to stick with the status quo, which I don't think is true. So walk me through what parts that you do agree on. Where is the compromise to try to get some kind of a deal? Because I think we all agree the existential crisis is real.
Well, I wouldn't call it an existential.
You wouldn't,
crisis.
really?
No, I wouldn't, because
hold on. Canada Post lost $3 billion between 2018 and now. You need simply look out your door to see we're not dealing with the world we used to live in. Things have changed, and you don't think it's existential at all?
No, since 2018, things that the Commission didn't take into account were that Canada Post lost pay equity complaints that cost them a lot of money because they were paying women less than they were paying men.
Sure.
On top of that, COVID-19 for 2 years really hammered everybody and hammered the corporation, especially that way. So some of the money that's there isn't the problem that they talk about. But what I will say is there is a problem. There's no doubt. They've spent a lot of money, and they shouldn't have spent the way that they did. They called it strategic investment, and then they ended up calling it an existential problem. So what we do agree on is that they wanted, when negotiations started, they wanted weekend delivery with not paying double time or overtime on the weekends. We have provided them with that, and now instead of accepting that it'll be straight time, now they want it to be part-time. So the goalposts are ever changing. Things like that, we've said that we'd go down that road. We've shown ways that people can that they can take if somebody's going to end up into overtime, that things could move around. But they want more than that. They want everything that they had on the menu. I hear that Mr. Hamilton today is saying that they're not going after our pensions. Well, that changed in front of the Commission. They were. He says he's not going after benefits. That changes. So supposedly we're gonna get an offer this week that doesn't have all those things in it. The question is why didn't we get that offer in December?
Fair enough, and we'll see what that offer is. As he says, we'll all see it once it comes out. On the timing of the strike mandate, we know that the contract runs out in 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. We know where we're at. Why do you need to pull that thread out now? Is that not sort of the nuclear option?
We don't even think that we needed to give notice. When the minister hit pause, he hit pause on everything, and when pause comes off, we think we're back on strike. But what the problem is that Canada Post on May the 13th put out notices to all of our members to say that they're going to change working conditions. So no one's going to be allowed to take their vacation. No one's going to be allowed to take leave. Benefits are going to be put aside. So Canada Post was the first one to rattle the sword, for sure. And yesterday we told Canada Post that in a movement between the two parties, and Canada Post ran to the media to say, hey, postal workers are going to go on strike on Friday. That's not what we said. We said we wanted to keep that option open for ourselves.
I talk to small businesses across the country every day, as I'm sure you do. They are obviously dependent. They lost a lot of money in the last contract. And I do hear this small but growing chorus of people that say, the thing is so broken, it can't be fixed. It needs to just be blown up and rebuilt from scratch. Is that, what do you say to that?
Well, what I can say is that I've been a postal worker for 37 years. I know how mail moves from one city to another. I know how it's delivered inside a city. And there's a number of people now at the top of Canada Post that have never delivered a letter in their life. They've replaced people that did know the business of delivering mail. And now we've got a bunch of people that don't know that. They're business people. They know business, but they don't know this.
But does that not come back to the point of then blow it up and have Parliament, with a new act of Parliament, introduce something new that can be built that doesn't have all the legacy problems that something that existed and was built when we all sent letters around the country more often? that is built for 2025 rather than 1925.
I guess that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
So-
For sure, we know, and Mr. Hamilton says we deliver the parcels of mail best in the country. The problem is that they've made it so people will run away. They say it's a strike, but Canada Post has made it so we don't deliver to the door. We deliver down the street. All of our competitors deliver to the door, and then the commission says, let's not deliver to the door anymore. That's not helpful in the conversation.
Do your members, are they convinced that they can do another, what was the last one, 32 days?
I'm not. I haven't talked to every member,
Sure.
but I'm sure there's some that think that they can, and
But
others that think that
do they think that like Canada Post can survive and we can get back to the table and get this done, even if we go through another lengthy dispute, or lengthy disruption?
Canada Post has walked away 3 times this spring from the table. What we're saying is why didn't they give us this offer in December? Why didn't they give it to us last week? They say they have an offer for us, and they put it right up against the deadline. What we're saying is that we'll give them, when they give us that offer, if they give it to us tomorrow, we'll press pause for 2 weeks so we can have a real look at that offer. There's a lot of changes in it, and it's a legal document, so we need to know where the commas and the periods are in that document. And they're putting us up against where we're not going to be, if they give it to us tomorrow, we're not going to be in a position to be able to react in a good way to that offer.
Well, so let's just make that part then clear. Let's say there's something tomorrow, it's Tuesday now, so let's say Wednesday or Thursday, something comes out. If they give you an offer, are you saying the strike threat is on pause as well?
We're saying that we're making that offer to Canada Post.
Right.
Here tonight, making that offer to Canada Post. Under the Canada Labour Code, both Canada Post and the union have to agree to that pause to put off there's a wall that you're up against, and we're going to move the wall.
Right.
So we're saying that we do that, and we put it in Canada Post court if they want to put this off for a couple of weeks to give the parties a chance to bargain collective agreements instead of having a strike. We put it in their court that they should.
Because they have
agree.
said they're going to issue some kind of an offer in the next 2 days, right?
Exactly, but like you say, some kind of offer. We have no idea what that
Sure.
looks like.
Well, and so is it safe to say then some kind of an offer comes out? If they agree to your, let's take 2 weeks to actually look this over, then we can have labor peace for at least those 2 weeks and see what sort of comes out on the other side?
And we can bargain from there.
Right.
They make an offer, and we can have a chance for back and forth.
All right, we're going to leave it there, but I am sure we will have more conversations as this week unfolds. Thanks for this, I appreciate it. That's Jim Gallant, a negotiator with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.